Coffee or matcha?
Matcha. 100% matcha.
Oh, man, I don't like matcha.
Really?
Nope.
Oh, my gosh.
I've tried it. It tastes like grass.
Ice cream. Oh, it's amazing. It tastes like grass. You have to put a little sugar in it. Just a little bit.
I feel like I'm drinking grass. I know. I'm gonna get crucified for that one. Welcome to Glow Local, a podcast that celebrates community, entrepreneurs, and businesses around the area. Hello, listeners. I am Andrea Pascali. Welcome to Glow Local. Today I'm sitting down with Melissa. She is the owner of Rested Little Nest, a pediatric sleep consulting business. So something a little bit different this week. Hi, Melissa. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for coming on. All right. So, Melissa, tell us a little bit about who you are and what your business does.
Sure. So my name is Melissa. I am a certified pediatric sleep consultant. I basically am helping families get to their sleep goals with their children without making them cry it out. And I am a very gentle approach. So I kind of focus more on their schedules and adapting their day to day. So all their needs are met during the day so they don't have to wake up on the old night.
That's different. I feel like every parent kind of can benefit from this.
Totally agree.
What drove you to open this business?
So I have been just somebody who gives a little too much of a shit about people.
An empath, they call it.
Yes, exactly. Since day one. I feel like I've always kind of gravitated more towards like service industry type environments. And I never truly felt like I kind of found my niche or like what my why was. And I really hoped that like once I had kids, that would kind of like fill that burden and like I would feel so complete and have my why, which I definitely did. They are truly the why behind what I do every day. But there definitely still kind of felt like I feel like I can be helping people do more. So it was 3:00 in the morning and I was rocking my son and I was doing what we all do, scrolling, just doom scrolling. And instead of going on Amazon, I was on probably one of those like Facebook groups, just like one of like the local moms groups. And I saw somebody post and they were like, I am desperate for sleep help. I don't know what to do. Is there like somebody or is there somebody that I can like work with? And I was like, wait a second, like I know how to answer this question. Like she is not helping her son by just like kind of throwing a pacifier at him and like hoping for the best. Like I can kind of figure out like how to do this. So a light bulb kind of went off and I said, I wonder if I can make this something. So I did like a quick Google search and there are so many different certification programs and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can really make this something. I think this might be like my passion project. So I was out on maternity leave and I applied to go to the only accredited school and I got in. And I did my program within 2 weeks. I was certified. I got my case studies done. I got my accreditation. And I have hit the ground running and I haven't looked back.
Oh, my God. So how old were you had one child at the time.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I had two. So I had my daughter who at the time was just a little over 2. And then my son, he was 3 weeks old.
Okay.
And I was sitting there just thinking about, how much I love this stage of life, and I hope that I can kind of bring that to other parents.
Right.
So it's been, just like the most fulfilling journey ever.
So it seems like it kind of just came like more natural to you than maybe it was coming to some other people with like putting your children to sleep, and you felt like maybe you could teach others some of your methods while implementing, I guess, some of what you were learning now getting certified.
Yeah. So it was pretty much, I felt like I had like a niche for it right off the bat. All of my friends were always texting me like, Melissa, like, how did you get your kids sleeping through the night? Like they're at 7 weeks old, my daughter was sleeping through the night. And then my son, he was 7.5 weeks old.
Okay.
And, he had CMPA, he had reflux, he had all of the things that everybody tells you your child is not going to be able to sleep through the night.
Like you're doomed.
And I was breastfeeding my son. And I was exclusively pumping for my daughter. So again, another stigma that everybody always says is, oh, well, if you have a breastfed baby, there's no way that they're going to sleep through the night. And I just was able to kind of figure it out naturally that you can get them into a natural circadian rhythm if you're teaching them from day one.
Right.
And it's kind of worked, and it's shown true for all the families that I've been working with too.
Would you say that going into getting your certification, you had already sort of figured out the secret on your own?
I think so. I think when I went to go get the certification, it was more to kind of learn different tips and tricks that I could offer for people if, let's say, my method itself wasn't necessarily working for them. So that, I think, definitely helped kind of craft my method, so to speak. But I did have a nice foundation before I kind of jumped into it, which was nice.
What would you say your like original method was, like when you were working with your own children before you started helping other people? Like what started working for you?
I think it was really just focusing on making sure, like newborns right off the bat, you have to teach them everything, literally everything.
Right.
So if you're teaching them the difference between day and night from day one, that makes such a significant difference. So like, how can we teach them the difference between day and night? Like, how are we supposed to do that? It could be something as simple as, okay, you keep everything bright and you are loud as anything, maybe you let the dogs bark like crazy during the day, or you're running the vacuum right where they're napping, just so they kind of know, I need to be active at this point. Whether I'm sleeping or not, it's bright in here, it's loud, that's how I'm going to handle it.
Okay.
And then at bedtime, everything is dark. You need to do a little routine just to kind of get them into a schedule so they get a general understanding, because babies thrive off of schedules.
Yeah.
So to have some sort of a routine for them to know, oh, okay, I need to teach my body now that it's time for me to go to sleep. And that, I think, alone helped get me, 5-6 hour stretches almost immediately.
Right.
Because now they're learning, okay, now it's time for me to go to sleep,
Yeah.
as opposed to, oh, I'm supposed to be up and partying at
Right.
this time.
Would you say the same method that worked for one of your kids worked for the other child?
It was completely different, but also at the same time, because they were two different kids, but giving them the ability to learn the difference between day and night, I think helped both of them get a general understanding of what they needed to accomplish. And then for my son, obviously he was waking up a little bit more fussy, whereas my daughter, she was my unicorn baby, where she was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I get to go to sleep now. Awesome. I'm sleeping till 7.
Wow.
So whereas my son, he was definitely a little bit more uncomfortable and a little fussy, and I needed to help him through that process. He still was giving me 5-6 hour stretches off the bat, just because he knew, okay, it's bedtime.
Right.
I'm supposed to go to sleep.
Right. Okay. Were you kind of like at any point looking up, like, were you one of those parents prior to being certified that was like going online and looking up like what to do and how to do, like?
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, literally all of us.
We're all just trying to survive somehow,
Right.
some way. So
Yeah.
here I am Googling, at 2 a.m. like, is this going to work? And
Yeah.
if I give my son an extra feeding on the overnight, is that good for reflux? Is that bad for reflux? Am I supposed to have the sound machine setting at a certain
Right.
decibel? Like just
Yeah.
Googling anything
Everything.
in the hopes that something would stick.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's literally what we all do. I mean, I have 2 little kids myself, and so I remember in the beginning with my older son, he was colic, and so nights were miserable for him, for us, and for, at the time, we were living in the apartment attached to my in-laws' house, and I'll never forget, one day I was like in the living room of my like mother-in-law's house with the baby, and my father-in-law like came downstairs after like a long night, and he was just like, oh, he's not crying anymore? And I was just like, I'm sorry, and like he meant no harm by it, but like it kind of like further validated that like he literally was just keeping the whole house up. It wasn't just me and my husband, like it was everybody. And I was like, oh my God, I like, you just feel like, oh. And I was like, I need to figure out how to keep this baby quiet at night. And so I started looking into the taking care of babies method. And so I used a lot of her methods in like the earlier stages of when my son was like an infant and he was really colic. And there were so many things that she had recommended that I tried that totally worked. And then I actually went on to use like a sleep consultant myself for a little while, who was just a friend at the time. And she was starting her own business like yours. And she kind of gave me some some tips and tricks too, and some that worked and some that didn't. And I started to realize, especially with the second baby, that like I was just like pulling like different things that I had learned from like the first baby, and it was like, okay, well, this works with him, and this worked with him, but it's not working with him. And so like there was it's not cookie cutter. And so I think that's kind of where I was going with what I had said before was, did what worked for one of your kids work for the other kid? Because with my kids, they were two different babies.
Exactly.
I was waking my youngest up to eat because the pediatrician was like, you need to make sure. And then it's funny because depending on who I spoke to, like I talked to other people who are like, you never wake a sleeping baby. Like he'll thrive no matter what. Like he's going to eventually wake up and eat. And I remember being really torn because I was getting so many different like,
you get so much feedback.
Yeah.
So many different opinions. And honestly, at the end of the day, your mom, you know your baby's best.
Yep.
And you know your baby's temperament best too. So if something that's going to work for you may not work for somebody else because maybe your baby's temperament is calm, cool, and collected. And then maybe somebody else's baby is going to be a FOMO baby and all they want to do is be up and partying one night.
Right.
So you really have to make it where like you're kind of pulling from all other sources to try to make something for yourself because you know your kids best at the end of the day.
Right, exactly.
So you know that if you tried to wake up your first because he was colic, you wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
No.
Whereas your second one, it's like, should I wake him? It's been 5 hours.
I would like put my head on his chest and make sure he was breathing. Because there were times he was that kind of baby. He was sleeping basically through the night since he was a newborn.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And then the older one would never. So it was two very different experiences. But I guess that's what makes babies unique. And I'm human beings, right? We're all different in different ways. And so we all develop differently and different things work for different people. So speaking of which, I had brought up taking care of babies before. What makes your business stand out from Kara?
So I think Kara's approach is awesome.
Okay.
I really do. I think that she tries to think about every single baby's temperament. She tries to think about every single situation that could happen or may happen or even should happen and has an answer for it. She has her videos that kind of show you the approach and like what to do. But then you kind of get stuck at that point because then what happens next? So this kind of worked for a week, but now what? So I personally think that I like a more customized approach, whereas for my families that I'm working with, we'll kind of sit down for an hour and go through top to bottom. They'll fill out a full assessment for me and tell me what their struggles are. They'll tell me what they want to accomplish, and then I can make something specific for them. And then they have access to me for 2 weeks.
Right.
So we can kind of go back and forth through my portal. We'll talk to each other. We'll kind of work out circumstances and situations. And I'll be able to kind of adapt and adjust their days for them one-on-one.
Okay.
Whereas it's so great that Kara has her standardized plans for everybody.
Right.
But I just don't think that families would have the ability to figure out what to do next if there was ever an issue that they ran into. Because I know I have friends who use taking care of babies and, Kara's amazing. She gives you everything that you need in like her nice little package and it's awesome. But you just lose that customizable and almost that like mom and pop feel.
Yeah, right.
Where it's so local. Where if somebody's working with me, they're like, oh my gosh, I know you. We had mutual friends on Facebook.
Right.
How do you know so-and-so,
Yeah.
So I just think that it also kind of gives a sense of trust where people know that they can kind of come to me and feel a little bit more comfortable to tell me what their actual struggles are. Whereas if they're filling out an intake form for a stranger, it may not be as customized.
Sure. I also feel like too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember Kara having a one-on-one option with her. I think it was mostly all videos.
I think it's all videos. I do think now she does offer a one-on-one, but it's with somebody on her team. Like it's not expensive. And I'm sure it is crazy. But with that also being said, I've had families that have come to me where they're like, I've even done the one-on-ones with Kara's team, and they are very much, you stick to the method.
Okay.
Whereas if somebody's coming to me and they say, I tried some of these methods and they didn't work. What am I supposed to do now? At least we can have the conversation on, okay, so what didn't work for you? Let me fix it.
Okay.
Because baby sleep is not black and white. No matter how much people want to make it black and white, no way.
No,
it is
no.
only gray.
No.
That's all it is.
No, I mean, and that's exactly what, the point I was making before about my 2 kids. That's an example of how it's not cookie cutter. And sometimes you can't just buy videos from, a bigger name and just follow them to a T and expect them to work. You may be dropping a lot of money on these videos only to find that that method's not what works for your child. And it could have, maybe worked for somebody else or maybe a lot of other people, but it doesn't always work for everybody. And so I do think there's so much to be said about, working with a local person, a smaller business like yourself. I mean, that goes in, I think, all areas of business, which is why I tell people, come to Long Island Aesthetics if you want spa services, because, what makes us stand out from like a bigger corporate brand, well, a laundry list of things.
Absolutely.
And that custom approach is one of them.
Yeah.
So we're very custom based here, and it seems like you're kind of going with the same method with your business where it's more customizable.
I think too, it also kind of something to be said about the longevity of success.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're going to go to a bigger named, or if you're going to purchase one of these packages from somebody where it's just very standard and it's like that standard approach, maybe it works for a week. Maybe it works for 2 weeks. Maybe it even works for 6 weeks. But then after that, your hands are kind of tied because maybe a regression happens. Maybe they're sick. Maybe you go on vacation. And now you're like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do now?
Right.
So it's nice to kind of have the ability to then have an actual contact for somebody that is a local mom that gets it. Right. And you can kind of reach out to me and say, what am I supposed to do? We just had a great time in Disney and now all they want to do is sleep in my bed.
Wow.
What do I do?
That's such a good point, because what are you going to do if you, like, your membership with taking care of babies is up and you have a regression or something? Like,
now you're stuck. What happens if you didn't download one of her regression videos?
Wow.
So that is something that I do also like to offer to my families, is that like I make the joke with all of them, like, sorry, you guys are stuck with me. So too bad. Come on back. I offer like weekly support too for families if they just need like tweaks of some sort.
Okay.
In those types of situations, it's like regressions, they travel. Avon Savings is coming up. Huge one.
Wow.
Huge. So just like a lot of things that families don't necessarily think of, that sleep really does make that much of a difference for.
Okay.
When you're having all of these bigger moments.
Right. So, Melissa, I would say that it's safe to say that every pediatric sleep consultant probably has their own philosophy. What is yours?
So I like to think of my thought process more so like a comforting, this is kind of like where the rest of the little nest came from. I want everybody to feel like they are in control of their own nest, so to speak. So I basically focus everything around what the parents are comfortable with. So if you are somebody that is more comfortable nursing your kids to sleep, by all means, I will support you. If you are somebody who is more comfortable in putting your kids in their crib at 3 weeks old, you need the independence, I will support you. So I focus my entire approach around comfort, around safety, security, and sleep environments. And then from there, that's how I kind of shift over into a schedule base where I make sure that your baby's needs are completely met through the daytime so that they no longer need to wake up on me overnight.
Okay, very interesting. I love that. So there's a lot of controversial topics when it comes to pediatric sleeping. One of the things that gets brought up a lot is the method of crying it out with sleep training. What are your thoughts there?
So I personally don't teach parents about cry it out, because I think there's something to be said that if you teach your children to have a healthy relationship with sleep, they won't need to cry it out. They're not going to need to cry themselves to sleep. Now, let's be real though, because babies cry to communicate. They can't speak to us. So they're crying if they're angry. They're crying if they're hungry. They're crying if they're bored. They're crying if they're uncomfortable, if they're sick. So that's what babies do. They cry to communicate.
Right.
So I always like to educate the families and let them know, listen, your baby is going to cry while we're going through this process because it's different. It's something that they're not used to. So we need to learn the difference between a comfort cry versus I need help cry. So I try to give them a little bit of tools and tips on understanding baby cries, like a whimpering or like a whining, and it almost kind of sounds sad, where there's like high pitches and low pitches. That is your baby trying to teach themselves how to soothe. Whereas an ear-piercing screaming that does not stop after 5 seconds, chances are you need to go in and you need to assist your baby. And you need to intervene however you see fit. So while it's easy to turn around and say, no, I don't teach cry it out, I also like to be realistic and let them know there is going to be crying, but it's more communication crying rather than I'm going to teach my baby that if they cry, they can stay there for 10 minutes and cry, and then I'm not going to go in and assist them. It really holds true that if you teach them to have a good relationship with sleep, they're going to want to go to sleep. They're going to enjoy sleep. I love my sleep. The only reason I love my sleep is because I was taught to love sleep. So we need to teach them everything, and this is where that comes from. And this is where cry it out kind of ends up phasing out because, you know, you've given them good base and a good solid sleep environment that they want to sleep.
Right.
So
I
that's
think
like my approach to it.
I think that, you know, to piggyback off what you were saying with like babies cry to communicate, you know, we've all anybody who has kids at least, we've all seen it ourselves. Like there's times where my 2.5-year-old will start crying out of nowhere and I'm like, what is wrong? And he's just like pointing at something. Meanwhile, he knows the words for it too at this point. And I'm just like, oh, you want such and such. And he's just like, you know, and you give it to him and he's just like happy. And I'm like, you were fine. Like, why did you feel the need to cry and point instead of use your words? But well, because it's like, that's what babies do. So yes, I think that like learning the difference between a communication cry versus a need for help cry is probably huge for parents because it helps them get through the process when they understand what's going on. Because if you're just left kind of like, if I'm in my room and my baby's in their crib and I have the monitor on and I hear him crying and I don't really know how to differentiate a communication cry versus a need for help cry, I'm naturally going to lay there looking at him in the monitor going, I need to intervene. I need to help him. And what do we know about once the baby sees you 9 times out of 10? It's like now they want you to pick them up and
they're awake. They're ready to party. They need you. If you're nursing to sleep, now they're automatically thinking, oh, great, mom's here. It's time for me to start nursing. And this is how the cycle starts. And this is how the cycle forms. And I'm very much into the education piece of it. I would rather parents have the knowledge to be able to succeed without me. Because what good am I if I'm just kind of getting them through 2 weeks to get their kids sleeping through the night? And let's say, sign or rough. They need the tools. They need to be able to succeed 6-7 months from now. So when that happens, not only am I teaching them about the difference between, you know, comfort cry versus like an I need help cry, I also like to teach them the difference between active and non-active sleep because that's something that a lot of parents don't know. So we all have REM sleep, right? Everybody knows about that. Everybody knows the signs, why sleep is so important, yada, yada. But what they don't understand is that babies only have 2 sleep cycles up until at minimum 6 months old. So from 6 months on is when they start getting like adult like sleep cycles. But early on, the first, you know, from the second that they're born till 6 months, it's just active and non-active. And I don't know if your kids were the loudest sleepers ever in the beginning. I don't know if you remember that stage because I always try to blur it out. But with my son, I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, like he's awake. Like I have to go get him. I have to pick him up. And then I would stop for a second and he would stop crying. And I'm looking at him. What is going on? He was sleeping. So a lot of times non-active sleep for newborns especially, and then up until 6 months, they are so loud, they're so noisy. And me being the helicopter mom that I am, I'm like, no, I have to go in and I have to intervene and I have to help him. But I was waking him up. So now I'm also creating these habits of, well, I'm teaching my son that he can't sleep on his own because I'm waking him up in the middle of him actually sleeping.
Exactly.
So just teaching parents about the different types of sleep cycles too and what they can kind of expect and look out for, I think also helps them. Because a lot of times they're like, oh my goodness, it's like every 45 minutes, like clockwork, they're awake. But the reality is that they're actually just linking their sleep cycles and they're not awake. They are truly just sometimes their eyes are even open. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Baby sleep is wild.
Baby sleep is really wild. That's so funny. I remember both my kids went through phases where they were sleeping, like while they were sleeping, they would almost sound like they were struggling to breathe.
Yes.
And I was like, again, like I'm like head on the chest, like, is he breathing? Like I'm like, is he wheezing? I bought a stethoscope. I remember I literally, and I was like, I would put it like on his lungs, and I was just like, okay, yeah, sounds clear. Like it's crazy the things you'll do for your kids, right? Just to make sure that like they're sleeping safely.
I went to the pediatrician with my son.
Yeah.
And I said, is he okay? And they said, why are you asking me this question? And I said, because he sleeps. And I wasn't used to it because my daughter was such a FOMO baby.
Right.
So I'm like, he's sleeping.
Right.
He's sleeping. He has all these medical issues that we are working through, but he's sleeping.
Yeah.
Is everything okay?
Right.
And you're like, enjoy the sleep.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So it's so funny how, the anxiety of it too also just kind of takes over.
I think sometimes things just seem too good to be true. And I kind of had that with my younger son as well. So I want to ask you another controversial topic because I was guilty of this one with my older son. Thoughts on co-sleeping?
Ooh, good one. So again, whatever is going to be best for your family is going to work for me. Okay. I will support you through and through. There are very safe ways to co-sleep, especially if you are nursing, because let's face it, who wants to get up at 4 a.m., walk a couple of rooms over, if you can just kind of roll over, latch them, and then go back to sleep.
Right.
I always offer and recommend that you do a cribside bassinet if that's going to be your comfort. That's going to be what's best for you and your family. But I do always, again, support the family. So if it's something that you choose to do as far as like co-sleeping goes, I'm all for it.
Okay.
I'll support you through the process.
I love that because I feel like in today's day and age, everybody has an opinion about everything. And I think that that's like a huge topic of discussion on like, especially like on the Facebook groups, with the other parents that someone writes like, like, oh, like I'm co-sleeping with my kid because it's the only way any of us are getting any sleep. And then you get like attacked, right? Like by so many people.
Oh my gosh,
and I'm pro co-sleep because it worked for me with my older son when he was colic. And frankly, like nobody was going to sleep if we didn't do it. It was just at that point. And I did what I had to do. My younger son, he sleeps. It's funny. Both my kids till this day, 6 and 2, they like me to put them to sleep. So I lay with them until they fall asleep.
Yeah.
But then they sleep independently. And so if at 4 or 5 in the morning, my younger son wakes up and starts calling for me from his crib, I'm going to go get him and put him in my bed with me. And then we'll sleep for another 3 hours. And I'm like, why is that an issue? I don't know. But
yeah, and I think there's also something to be said too. I follow so many different pediatricians, and I've looked at so many different studies, from European studies to American studies, and like where the differences are. And a lot of what European pediatricians recommend is physical connection, contact with your babies. So the way that I like to introduce it, if I'm working with early on, like if I'm working in the early stages, I recommend contact nap, contact nap, contact nap.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, your baby needs to be close to you.
Yeah.
So the more that they are close to you during the daytime, the less they need to be close to you at night.
That's so interesting. I feel like most people would assume it to be the opposite.
Right. So if you think about it in a 24-hour time period, if we're expecting babies to sleep independently for 12 hours, when are we going to be close to them? And when are we going to be attached to them? And
Which
when
they
are we
need.
going to have that nurturing moments with your baby, whether you're breastfeeding or not? So this is where contact napping comes into play. And so I always recommend, at the very least, do your first nap as a contact nap, your last nap of the day as a contact nap, just to kind of get in, number one, those extra snuggles for you, because let's face it, who wouldn't want extra snuggles? I mean, well, of course, there are some people who just they physically can't, whether they have to go back to work too early or, whatever the case may be. But if you can contact nap, embrace that shit. Embrace it as much as possible, because you're setting your babies up for success to be able to be independent without you for 12 hours.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's where I like to kind of gravitate a little bit more towards that approach. If somebody tells me, maybe they want to consider still co-sleeping, I'll say, I think I would support you 1000%, but why don't you also try to do a little bit more contact during the day to see if they're a little bit more successful at night?
You know what? And I appreciate that approach because you're not telling people like, no, you can't do this. It's if you at any point, which I don't know, like I didn't co-sleep because I wanted to.
Yeah.
I did it out of survival mode.
Right.
So if there was like an approach that could be recommended to me, you know, back then, and it was try this so that your child doesn't necessarily need to sleep in the bed with you and act like a clock all night long and kick and punch both you and your husband and everybody, like nobody leaves, then I would have tried it, right? Because I feel like, you know, at the end of the day, the reason we got into that co-sleeping, you know, routine was out of pure like survival. We all needed sleep and
the craziness, the chaos.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Is your approach different with people who have multiples?
Yes. So believe it or not, it is, well, number one, it's so common for siblings to share rooms. So room sharing right after you get the baby out of the bassinet in your room, if they have a crib in a separate room or whatever the case may be. Twins, that happens all the time. I haven't had the chance to work with triplets yet, so I would be very curious about that. But I will say the goal is you want to start them with sleep training separate. So whichever child that you feel is going to kind of take to a little bit more of adjusting a schedule, you would have that child start in their room first. And then you would slowly transition in the second one. So same thing with twins. The twins you kind of remove separately. And you do one at a time. And then you take like the last couple of days to kind of bring them in together.
Right. I feel like it's probably so much trickier sleep training with twins or multiples because what happens when like one wakes up? Do they wake the other one up?
Yes, exactly. So that's why you kind of want to think of it almost as like you take one at a time.
Yeah.
But you still can do them at the exact same time. It's just a matter of hopefully, you know, you have two parents at home. So one parent can take one and one can take the other. And if that's not the case, if you're just, you know, solo parenting at that point, you would just kind of focus solely on where you think that you're going to run into more challenges. So whether it be one of the other twins or the younger sibling or maybe even the older sibling, depending on if you have a strong independent toddler like I do. So you would kind of focus on the challenge ahead of you first, get them a little bit more comfortable, and then you would introduce them to the room, and then you would pull the other child out, help them through, and then same thing, you would then collectively do them both together at the end.
So you have a method for everything.
There's a method to the madness, I swear.
I mean, it's good because talking about it here allows listeners and potential clients to realize that you have the knowledge and the training that is necessary to potentially help somebody who's watching this right now and going, oh my God, I can use her. And they can go into it with confidence.
Yeah. And you know, that is really the goal. I don't want any family to ever feel like, well, this is it. My kid doesn't sleep. Because at the end of the day, you can teach your children whatever you need to give them a healthy relationship with sleep. Like that is the goal for everybody, right? The goal for everybody is to want your kids to happily go to bed, fall asleep, and wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at whatever time that you desire for them to wake up and be ready to start the day. Because kids are not great when they don't sleep, especially toddlers, because then that's when you run into the overtiredness, you run into fighting literally everything. And how are we supposed to survive like that? We can't be our best selves if our kids are up at night. So that's kind of like the goal. The goal is to teach them how to have a healthy relationship with sleep. I don't want anybody to ever sit there and feel like, well, my kid's not going to take to that.
Right. Do you have like an age threshold where you think children should be napping until? Like, should they like be giving up naps by a certain age, or they definitely need to still be napping until a certain age?
So think about it from this perspective. Babies need X amount of hours to sleep in a 24-hour time period. So like when you're a newborn, they go from 14 hours to 17 hours. It's a little bit of a longer threshold. And then you slow on and so forth, you know, you kind of remove hours as they get older. So once you hit that 2 to 4 year mark, it is such a flexible threshold. It could be anywhere from 8 to 13 hours of sleep. So again, it depends on your kid's temperament. It depends on sleep environments. It depends on so many different things. So when your child is about 2, that's when you'll start to notice, okay, maybe they don't need 12 hours of overnight sleep and they definitely still need to take a nap. But as you'll notice, if they start to kind of steal their overnight hours from their nap, that's when I say, this is a little bit of a red flag for you. Maybe you should consider dropping your nap. So it could happen as early as 2, but realistically, probably around 4. 3 is like really the consistent time. 3.5 is when babies can typically go days, even weeks without a nap. But I mean, let's face it, I still love a good nap in the middle of the day. So why am I going to tell a baby, no, you don't need to take a nap?
Sure. Yeah.
So realistically, I always like to say, if your child is getting 10 to 12 hours of overnight sleep and they're still napping, don't mess with what's not broken. But if they are waking up in the middle of the night, if they are doing early morning wake ups like 4:30 a.m. and there's nothing going on in the environment, maybe it's time to evaluate on if they really need that nap or not.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
There's so many different, I'm sure, studies that you have done on a certification level that a lot of parents aren't, doing because, let's be honest, you don't have to go through a course before having a baby, and they certainly don't hand you a manual when you deliver the baby. So I mean, I wish they really should just make a baby manual.
They really need to give you something.
I know, right? I mean, they do. They give you a whole bunch of like nonsense paperwork at the hospital, right? And then like you go home with this folder and you're like, none of this is helpful.
None of this makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing to it. Half of the things are really more just about breastfeeding than anything else. And then, you're getting shamed in the hospital for no matter what decision you decide.
Literally.
It's like, good luck.
Yep. There should be a requirement, like before the minute you get pregnant, you're like, you have to like watch this like hour-long video, and it covers like feeding, sleeping, just everything, like all the things, It's like, if you're pregnant, you have to take this.
Just
parenting.
Like you watch the videos at the hospital before you leave.
Yeah,
like, no, you have to watch this before you go home.
I know.
It's the same thing.
I mean, I guess technically that would be, it's controversial.
I just remember signing something that said, "Don't shake the baby." I was the dad. I was like, sure.
Yeah,
We don't shake baby.
Okay, cool, got it. Like, I even people really need to be told this. It's like, that's crazy.
People need to be told some of the more obvious things, which is a little scary.
They literally make you watch the don't shake the baby video. It's the craziest thing.
There's so many topics of, I guess, not to say controversy, but like a lot of unknowns in all areas of being a parent. And it really is a learning experience for everybody. And, when they say it takes a village, I think that it takes a village in more areas than one. Not just like, oh, I want to go out to dinner with my husband. I need a babysitter. Like, I think when people use the term "it takes a village," it often comes in the form of, having support and help, like when you need a break, as opposed to, the needing professional guidance and like needing people like yourself, just needing other individuals in the community, other parents that maybe have information that we don't, have ourselves.
Yeah, and I really think that there's something to be said about making sure that you kind of have your village in your back pocket ready to go. So whether it's you need a lactation consultant, maybe you used a doula in the hospital and they can give you some other resources afterwards. It could be a sleep consultant like myself. Just kind of giving you like the foundation of what you can expect over the next couple of months, because it could be so eye-opening for somebody who's never had a baby before.
Yeah.
As a first-time mom, I remember leaving the hospital being like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? And I think that this is where a lot of that first kid versus second kid comes in from, because with your first, you're just kind of learning everything. Whereas with your second, you think, okay, this all worked perfectly for my first. As I was learning it, let me try it again for my second.
Yeah.
And then just like in your situation, you have 2 completely different temperament babies.
Yeah.
And now what am I supposed to do? So I think having resources like that in your village would just make such a big difference.
Yeah. And the more we know, the better we do as parents, and it drives me nuts when I see people, the older generations, making comments about our parenting styles when it comes to car seats, like
Oh
a big
my
one.
goodness, car seats.
Feeding, sleeping, discipline, and
Yes.
it drives me nuts sometimes because, well, when like you turned out just fine, right? You know, like that's like the big saying. Like
We're all in therapy.
we're all in therapy with some major mental health
Yes.
issues. No, but you know, it's crazy because like I mean I hear it all the time from from the older folks that are like, I raised 5 kids and they all turned out to be fine. And okay, and fine, that
Fine.
whatever you consider fine, okay. But more importantly, I call that luck. You know, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, my mom and dad have told me several times, like, oh, like they drove us down to Florida like more times, several times than they'd like to admit, like not in car seats because like they weren't a big thing.
It wasn't as important as it is.
And I'm like, are you like now you get crucified if
my God.
if your kid's buckle isn't you know on the right way, and you take a picture of them and post it on social media, and it's like a lot of times, like, I'm sorry, like some parents just don't know.
So I had our daughter had a little stay in the NICU when she was first born. So the nurse, she was very compassionate to us about every single aspect about new parenting. And the one thing she was overly passionate about was car seats. She terrified my husband and I to the point that even to this day, we make the car seats so tight. Well, so here I am. I go and I put my best friend's daughter in the car, and I put her car seat a little too tight compared to what her mom usually does. And she had blood marks because I was so terrified that I was going to put her in the car seat too tight.
Oh my God.
Like I put her in too tight and she just wasn't used to it.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, we were laughing about it for days, that it was like, oh my God, Melissa, you really have PTSD from this car seat thing.
Yeah.
But it really is. It's one of those things that people scare you straight. And, oh my God. Yeah. So now my poor little niece, here she is with these blood marks on her.
But if you were in an accident, I mean,
she would have been safe.
She would have been okay. I like, yeah, again, the more we know, the better we do. And I think that, you know, if you know that, like, there's been these studies and that they have statistically proven to work, why wouldn't we follow them? And that kind of goes back to where we started, you know, with pediatric sleep consulting.
Absolutely.
So there's obviously been studies. There's now certification classes for it.
Absolutely.
You've taken those classes. You've done the training. You're capable, more than capable, of helping people figure out how to make their nights a little bit more rested and seamless. Because let's be honest, parents parent better when they're not sleep deprived. And why are parents sleep deprived usually? Because their kids didn't sleep through the night.
Exactly.
So I really love the idea. You know, I think that your mindset wasn't just probably, I want to, you know, go into a business helping kids learn how to sleep better. I'm sure that your mindset was like, I want to make the whole family happier.
Exactly.
Give the parents the rest help these parents get the rest that they need so they can be the best parents that they can be.
Exactly.
Give these kids the rest that they need. Help parents, you know, get their kids to rest and sleep appropriately so that they can be the best kids that they can be. Right. And I just think everybody functions better when they're more rested.
And that's really what it comes down to. Because how can we be our best selves as parents if we are sleep deprived? If we are questioning our every move on the overnights at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, you're exhausted. I mean, there's, again, back to your point, like there's so many studies on sleep deprivation. And where does it stem from for parents? It stems from their kids waking up on the overnight. So how can we fix that? And it really starts from teaching them as early as possible how they can have a healthy relationship with sleep, and then teaching them as they get older that it's okay to still have a healthy relationship with sleep. Because if you're sleeping, I'm sleeping. And then I'm my best self because you're sleeping. So that's just the nature of the beast.
So obviously you're a mom.
Yes, I am.
How do you...
Two amazing babies. Oh, they're my world.
How old?
2.5 and 6 months.
Oh, 6 months. I didn't realize you had a 6-month-old.
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yes. We are surviving.
Okay. Oh, 6 months. That's a tough phase. I mean, you obviously have the sleep thing down pat.
Yes, thank God. Because I have to tell you, if I did not sleep, I don't know how I would function. I really, truly think that I would just need an IV of caffeine all day long. I would not function.
How many cups of coffee do you have?
Oh my God. I start my day with 2.
Oh, fantastic. So do I.
The Celsius kicks in around 3.
Yeah, it's a lot. I have 2 myself. I have a 2 years and 3 months year old.
Yeah, so what is that? I don't know. I don't count the months.
Yeah, I don't either.
20 something.
Yeah, he's 2. I have a 2-year-old, and my oldest will be 6 in a few weeks. And
gosh,
yeah,
so cute.
it's so crazy actually watching him like grow up into like this boy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, my husband and I have, the memories that pop up on the iPhone all the
Yeah.
time that I think we look at them every single day
I do too. Like, how can you not?
when they were babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we look at them all the time, and so it's a memory of not just their infancy and stuff like that, but it's like memories of our lives, our past lives, like us as adults, right? Like it's, my world revolves around my kids, but sometimes you also evolve and change over time, and you don't look back as much at your own changes, I think, as you do of your kids.
It's so true.
But one of the things that I always, like a core memory of my son being, an infant was that he was 3 months old when COVID started. And I was on maternity leave and the world was shutting down. And while everybody was like in their head about, oh my God, what's going to happen with my job? What's going to happen with my business? I was building a business.
Which is even more of a challenge.
Yeah.
Because I was in a similar situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still in the beauty industry at that point.
Okay.
And COVID hit. And we're the first people to lose their jobs and be laid off if you weren't building your own business. So it was a very similar situation. And it's like, oh my God, now what? I was getting married. My husband and I were planning our wedding.
Yep.
And we were like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? What are we supposed to do? And I think that also kind of changed a lot of the way that we all kind of parented.
Yeah.
It
Definitely.
really made us kind of slow down, which I think was such a blessing in disguise that none of us realized. And then especially as you're trying to build your own business, you're just go, 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 go. So to kind of be forced to slow down and stop for a second and focus on your kids, it was the best thing that could have ever happened.
Right. And I know you were in the beauty industry back in the day.
Yeah.
But more recently you were in corporate America.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier when you first came in that you recently left that job.
I did.
How has it been for you balancing motherhood with not just starting a business, but you were even balancing that with another job?
It's been chaos.
Yeah, it is. It's hard.
Absolutely chaotic. I think that it kind of also exaggerated a lot of my postpartum anxiety and depression too. Just because trying to wear so many hats and balance as much as humanly possible. My husband has a pretty demanding job, so there were a lot of nights where I would be by myself with both kids, which is really hard. So I commend the single parents out there. I don't know how they do it, and they do it with such grace. And I guess it goes back to, it takes a village, because I really hope that they do have that village. But yeah, it's a challenge, and I really think that there's something to be said about just trying to keep yourself as organized as possible, and making sure that I'm still able to spend quality time with my kids versus just being there. I really do thrive when I'm present with my babies, and then still having the ability to kind of now build this business and help other people be able to give quality time to their kids. Because let's be honest, if you're not sleeping and your kids aren't sleeping, you're not going to be able to have that lovey-dovey building that relationship as badly as you want it with your kids.
Right.
Because you're all exhausted.
Exactly.
And you're kind of like watching the clock. You have anxiety coming up to bedtime. If they're not napping, you're like, great, I'm just wearing them all day long. What else am I supposed to do? If they're toddlers, you're probably fighting. If they have a strong, independent toddler like I do at home, where you end up fighting with your kid all day long. Right?
Yeah.
So I really think that being able to kind of carve out that quality time with my babies has changed for me mentally, but it also gives me the time that I need to focus on building my brain and growing my business.
Right. And frankly, let's be honest, you probably wouldn't have the same ambition and drive to build your business if you were sleep deprived.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it probably wouldn't have happened, to be completely honest. I think that if I was still focusing on corporate America and, kind of really grinding as much as I was, and then coming home to my kids and then they weren't sleeping, I don't even know how I would be able to be a functioning human in society.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, you're like pouring from an empty glass at that part
Yeah.
into all of the areas of your life that mean the most to you. I always find that to be so interesting. I feel like as human beings, we are always put in this position. It's societal. It's society. Society has
Sure.
you can't change it. Things, certain things are what they are, right? We have, we have to pay our bills. We have to make money, and whether that be, one person in the house bringing in the money and paying the bills, or two people in the house, which in today's world is the more likely case.
What has to happen.
Yeah, you're basically forced to almost pour from an empty glass all the time, right? So like, what do? We have to evolve. We have to figure out how we are going to show up for ourselves so that we aren't pouring from an empty glass, because these are the most important days in our kids' lives, and that's why I say this, I'll go to the grave. Like, I built this business because I wanted to be a present parent, and I never wanted to miss a beat in my kids' lives. I started building this business before I even had kids, and I would always say to literally anybody who asked, like, why do you want to open your own business? And I said, because one day I want to have the ability to be a present parent and never miss a beat in my kids' lives. And if I own my own business and I have that flexibility of creating my own schedule, I know that I can make that happen.
Absolutely.
And so as long as I feel like there has to be a driving factor.
Yeah.
And as long as you constantly have in the back of your mind that you're doing this for your children, like nothing, like you're unstoppable. Like as a parent, you're unstoppable. Like it doesn't matter how tired you are. It doesn't matter, how stressed out you are. If you have your eye on the prize, which is to be the best version of you for your kids, you're going to do whatever you need to do by any means possible to show up. Right. And so I think that, this is the perfect way to end off and say to people, if you are someone who's struggling with putting your kids to sleep at night, if you are somebody who's waking up, dragging through the day, sleep deprived because you just can't figure out how to get your kids to sleep independently, don't feel like a failure as a parent because you need help. Like, reach out. The resources are there. They can call you. You can be that person. And it's life-changing when you get your energy back because your kids are sleeping at night. You can maybe build that business. Work your job 9 to 5 and not feel like, you're running on empty.
Right.
These things all will
They all come into play and they all tie together.
come full circle. Yeah.
And I really also think that there's something to be said about having the ability to have time for you.
Oh, yeah, it's tremendous.
If you're fighting bedtime routines with a 3-year-old until 11 o'clock at night, where's your you time?
Yeah.
Because realistically, who wouldn't want to just be able to kind of sit and hang out on the couch for an hour and, drink whatever your drink of choice is as you're watching whatever your show of choice is, whether it be with your partner or if it's by yourself, if you just want some alone time, whatever the case may be, to get those aspects of your life back because you're not struggling with sleep. Sometimes all you need is 15 minutes for yourself to just kind of have that mental reset. So what can you accomplish if you get an hour of your life back, 2 hours of your life back?
Right.
So that's really where a lot of my focus is around is let me help you be the best version of yourself. And that starts with giving your kids the right tools and resources to get them there.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think that at the end of the day, our relationships will improve, our, mental clarity will improve, our parenting will improve, being a spouse will improve. I just like literally everything. Everything improves when you're well rested.
Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic. All right, so I have a couple of quick fire questions for you, and these are the fun ones. So, coffee or matcha?
Matcha. 100% matcha.
Oh man, I don't like matcha.
Really?
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
I've tried it.
It
Tastes like grass.
Ice cream. Oh, it's amazing. It tastes like grass. You have to put a little sugar in it. Just a little bit.
I feel like I'm drinking grass. I know. I'm gonna get crucified for that one. What's a baby product you swear by?
The hash sound machine. You want a nice little red light in the room. Red lights help with the babies. It also helps with the toddlers for them to learn. If the light is red, you do not leave your room. If the light is green, it's time to come.
Wow. I love that. I didn't realize it had that feature.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
All right, here's a good one. What's one thing you wish parents would stop Googling at 2 a.m.?
Oh my gosh. When should I stop swaddling my baby?
Never. Till they're 30. I still like to get swaddled.
Swaddle, cuddle them, snuggle them, make it as tight as possible.
Oh, the best. What's your favorite lullaby? Do you have like a playlist or a specific, like or are we white noise?
We are a consistent noise. So sometimes even white noise, brown noise, if there's like a change in the shift of the sound, it actually could wake up your kids.
Okay.
So I say something like wind, rain, like something that is just going to be true, consistent sound, because that mimics what was in the womb.
So lullabies are probably the worst thing then, because
Awful. Awful. It'll help your toddler because it'll help them kind of be like, all right, now it's time for me to go to sleep. But that's about it.
my 6-year-old loves lullabies, but like that makes perfect sense. Because right, like the whole point we do white and brown noise is to mimic the womb, and
Yes.
babies love that.
And Twinkle Twinkle is absolutely not mimicking anything that's going
Not
on
at
in the
all.
womb.
Not at all. Oh man. All right. So last one. Finish this sentence. A well-rested baby means
Happy moms. Happy dads.
fantastic. I love it. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you. I learned a lot today, and I'm really excited because I think that you're going to get a lot of people to watch this and reach out, because they're probably watching and saying, I need her. So your inbox is open, right? We'll post your information.
I'm available, whatever anybody needs, even if they just have a quick question. I'm here to help. I'm happy to help the community as best as possible.
Local Nassau County mom, and what's better?
Love it.
Thinking about you and me, baby.